It was Father's Day, a clear sky Sunday in Aurora, when I watched my blue F-150 leave my driveway on the back of a tow truck, amber light blinking, the neighbor frozen with his newspaper, and two joggers in leggings stalled on the sidewalk like someone hit pause on the block. I, Walter Bennett, Walt to almost everyone, stood on the grass with a hot coffee mug and thought, some folks think love comes with a spare key. They hid mine. So I called a tow. The clatter of the ramps dropping cut through the morning like a knife through brown paper. Melissa, my daughter, stepped onto the porch wide-eyed, spatula still in her hand. Kyle, her husband, came out behind her shirtless and staged like the sidewalk was his set. "You lost your mind?" He fired off before the winch even engaged. I didn't answer the insult. I answered what mattered. "The truck's mine. Today I'm driving." The word mine hit the porch rail and echoed in my chest. My truck. My house, my life. Rico, the driver, cap low, half a grin, the kind of pro who doesn't measure a job by the drama, wished me a happy Father's Day, and with two quick moves, cinched the straps like tying a string around your finger. While he set the dollies, I let the morning air, coffee and wet grass go in and out of my lungs without a hitch. I had a routine checkup at the VA, a blood pressure med review. I had a key missing from the drawer. I had a whole plan for control collapsing right there where the whole street could see. You might think I'm overreacting. All this over a key, someone will say. Listen, it's never about a key. It's about what the key opens. In my case, it opened a door most people like to keep shut. The door marked no, and when that door swings, some folks walk in without knocking. I wasn't going to let them. You won't believe what I did after the flatbed turned the corner with my F-150. I didn't just make a new key. I flipped the hinges on my house. I didn't know it yet, but when I dialed that mile-high towing number I kept out of electrician's habit, I also switched on something else, an entire system of boundaries I'd forgotten how to install. And the good part? They worked. I've always been a routine man. I retired from the power company with hands scored by cold and grease, a knee that feels a storm before the clouds do, and a notebook of crooked numbers scribbled in pencil. Poles, wires, transformers. I spent my life climbing, fastening, fixing. I learned early the rule that saved me more than once: identify, isolate, repair. You don't play with a live line, with people you sometimes play without noticing, until you get shocked. I live in a little brick place on South Peoria Street. A wooden porch I sanded and varnished myself 2 springs ago. That was home for me and Linda, my wife, for almost 4 decades. The year she passed, I bought the blue F-150, a 15 extended cab, leather that still curls into Sundays, with the money we'd saved to travel. We didn't see the country together, but I drove my grief. Being behind the wheel kept my tires on the asphalt when my head wanted to drift nowhere. I kept that truck like a keepsake. Oil on schedule, tires firm, floor mat without a crumb. First turn starts, AM radio low when the night wanted company. It wasn't just a vehicle. It was the part of me that said, I'm still me. I woke that Father's Day early before the garage warmed up. Light sliced the curtains, coffee brewed how I like it, strong enough to stand a spoon but not bitter, toast going, butter just right. I had the VA appointment later, a routine check-in over on Wheeling. I set my mug on the counter, opened the drawer where I always leave the keys, and felt a Sunday wrong kind of empty. Hollow drawer, metal tray on top of the fridge, nothing. Hook by the door, just a lone carabiner swinging. The house wasn't quiet. I heard kitchen steps, a stifled laugh, the scrape of a spatula on a pan. Since March, Melissa and Kyle had moved in temporarily. They came with the line about getting their finances sorted. 3 months tops dad. Daycare for Ethan pricey, rent climbing, life tight. I know tight. I lived on overtime most of my life. I opened the door with my heart open too. 3 months later, the couch had their imprint. The remote pointed at a stream I'd never seen, and my list of temporaries had grown. I was covering their gas just for a bit. The insurance on Kyle's SUV, $200 and change a month, a number that hurt more than a hard chair. and living with a Wi-Fi password that changed without so much as a heads up. I walked into the kitchen with my mug. Melissa was folding eggs with cheese, black pepper in the air. Kyle scrolled with his thumb, that tick people get when they're pre-apologizing without wanting to show it. "Morning," I said. "Coffee's fresh," she said. "Where are my keys?" I asked. The silence that followed wasn't from not hearing. It was the silence of folks who agreed on an answer and still couldn't find a place to store the shame. Kyle lifted an eyebrow like yanking a handbrake. "Walt, we need to talk." He always opened like that when the goal was to jam my will and slide his in, using that podcast motivator voice he thinks convinces people. "I don't have time for a sermon. I've got a VA appointment," I said. He shrugged and petted his phone like a talisman. "You've been parking real close to the street, almost clipped the trash truck. Melissa got worried, so you're not driving today. We'll take you." My daughter looked at me with a smile that begged forgiveness and permission at the same time. "Dad, it's for your own good. We love you. You've had some forgetful moments." "Forgetful? I don't forget an empty drawer. I know where I left my key. I know when someone moves it. And I'd seen the other signs these last months. The mail opened by mistake, the talk about maybe scheduling a cognitive eval, the new Wi-Fi password on a note that wasn't where I left it. With a bad set pole, the wind sings before it knocks it down. I heard the song. "You hid my keys," I said without raising my voice. "Nobody hid anything." Melissa shot back too fast. "Great," I said, "then hand them to me." She dropped her eyes. Kyle cleared his throat, gearing up to say the DMV lets family report concerns. He even said it. "We'll drive you, grab lunch at Maple Street after. How about that?" I saw the move. Affection as the password to control. I took a breath, set my mug on the counter, and did what an electrician does when he smells a hot wire. Killed the power the right way. I picked up the phone and called Mile High Towing, told them I'd lost my key and needed my F-150 hauled to the dealership on Iliff to cut a new one and reprogram the immobilizer. On the other end, no appetite for drama. "No key? No problem. We'll use Dolly's. We'll be there quick." "What are you doing?" Kyle asked, his chin jutting like he wanted to bite the morning. "It's early for a show," I said, and my tone was so normal the words slid into him like ice down the back of a shirt. He laughed, thinking I was bluffing. I wasn't. A little before 7, the wrecker turned onto Peoria with a punctuality my old supervisor would have envied. Rico hopped down, said his hello, and the block got an audience. Mr. Franklin across the street came out with his paper, glasses low on his nose. 2 joggers slowed to a stop, hands on hips. When the flatbed tilted and the F-150 crept up like it was accepting a dance, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, my axle settling back into place. I smiled on the inside. It was just a pickup rolling onto a flatbed. It was my life easing out of a chokehold. "Dad, this is unnecessary," Melissa whined. "We were just trying to help." I locked the front door and said it in a way we could remember later without resentment. Helping is asking, not hiding. And I made a mental note. Later, talk about the opened mail. That wasn't sliding. Little did I know, that wouldn't be the only thing that didn't get a free pass. When the flatbed swung onto Iliff and I was buckled into the cab seat, heart thumping where it ought to, it hit me that this simple move, call a pro, load the truck, head to the dealership, was the opposite of impulsive. It was method. It was identify, isolate, repair turned inward. I identified. They hid my keys to control me. I isolated. No key, no control. I repaired. Cut a new key, wiped the old ones, reset the board. Simple as killing a circuit. Sounds small. Just wait. We pulled up to Front Range Ford as the sun was already warming the facade, and the techs were lining up their tool carts. Big Mike, his uniform made sure you knew, met me with both hands, a man who's held a lot of keys and a lot of trouble. Cut a key off the van, reprogram the immobilizer, wipe the old ones. Comes to around 480. "We can have you rolling before lunch," he said. "Do it," I told him, and added, "Wipe every old key, please, everyone." He got it without lifting an eyebrow. I walked to the corner cafe. Ordered a strong black and sat by the window because I like watching the world move even when I'm still. My phone started buzzing with that modern fury it gets when you don't obey. First a call from Melissa, then another, then a roll call of rings. Her again. No caller ID. Kyle, her again. Within a couple of hours, I'd counted 18 missed calls from Melissa, 4 from Kyle, 2 voicemails from an unknown number, and a text from my sister in Tampa. What happened? Melissa says you freaked out. I took a breath and sent her the truest line I had. I just reset some boundaries. I'll call you later. While I waited, I opened my banking app and saw a notification I'd been kicking down the road. The insurance on Kyle's SUV had hit my temporary shared expenses account one more time. $200 and change, an amount that always tickled the bad side of my stomach. I'd built that account thinking 2 bills and a talk. It turned into half a dozen bills and 0 thank yous. Right there, with the coffee cooling, I logged the second half of Isolate, closed that account, and cut their access. Not out of spite, out of hygiene. Back at the dealership a little after 10, Big Mike showed up with 2 new keys in a bag that rustled like a Christmas present. He tapped through a tablet, immobilizer reprogrammed, old keys deleted, only the new pair alive. If anyone tries an old one now, it's a paperweight, he said. I signed with a steady hand, no flinch at the 480 because on that slip I wasn't seeing an expense. I was seeing relief in numbers. I slid into the truck and turned the key like I was opening a front door after a remodel. The engine answered with the rumble Linda could recognize with her eyes closed. I smiled to myself, and the smile came from the center of my chest. Back on Peoria, I parked in the garage, dropped the door with the remote in my pocket, and stepped inside with the world's noise outside like low music. Melissa sat on the couch, face puffy from crying. Kyle at the edge of the table, jaw locked. "Dad, you're being stubborn," she said. "Kyle and I did what the DMV allows. We filed for a re-examination. They'll call you. It's for your own good." The confession came out tasting like a hidden win. I held back the urge to answer with hot iron and gave them the coldest answer I had. Because cold heals sometimes. "Great. I love paperwork. Tomorrow morning I'll go to the DMV myself, request an evaluation, and I'll bring Dr. Patel's report. And starting today, no one hides anything of mine." "The rules have changed." "What rules?" Kyle sneered. "My rules," I said without raising my voice. "No need." That same day, I installed a small safe I'd bought months ago and left in the box. Procrastination has an expiration date. I put my documents, passport, cards, the new spare key, the house title inside, changed passwords, called the bank, cut their access to the shared account, reset my online login, canceled the insurance on Kyle's Rogue, and told them, "You've got 24 hours to get your own. Do not drive without it." The look he gave me could light a corner pole, but poles don't walk. A man without insurance walks to the corner and meets a patrol. Write that down. 3 days later, the DMV envelope landed quicker than I expected. They'd set a re-exam for soon. I called and asked to move it up. I brought Dr. Patel's note, vision corrected to 20/25 with the new glasses, ran the simulator, reaction time, visual field, then took a car from the senior evaluation program with a calm instructor named Trisha. I drove Aurora the way I've driven this town my whole life. Signal before the lane change. 2-second stop at the sign. Eyes in the mirror like I'm reading my days. When we pulled back in, Trisha smiled. "Mr. Bennett, you drive better than a lot of folks in their 30s. It wasn't flattery. It was data. I grabbed a box from Lamar's, the maple frosted ones Linda loved, and set the certificate on the living room table like a live trap. Step on it, and it clicks. I wanted them to hear the catch. Melissa picked up the paper and flushed. Kyle looked away and threw the sore loser line. "That test doesn't even count. It's biased." I didn't bite. "The best way," I said, "isn't deciding for me. It's deciding with me." Then I went to water the yard with the hose that always mists a little off to the side, just to remind me nothing's perfect. But a lot still works. Close a valve and you can hear the leak stop. The quiet that settled after I tucked the keys in the safe and laid the papers out was a rare quiet in my house since March. It didn't last. By the end of that week, I found a bank letter with my name on it. Opened, folded wrong. It was about the paid-off mortgage, old paperwork I'd kept stashed that someone decided to check for fees. Melissa stammered when I asked. "We just wanted to check. Check my mortgage like you check an oven temp?" I went to my office, shut the door, and called someone I respect. Janet Cole, an attorney in Englewood. She'd helped 2 retired buddies of mine straighten their homes when family mixed up love with power. I laid it all out in one breath. Hidden keys, opened mail, a shared account turned into a current, me footing the insurance on a grown man's car, a DMV re-exam request filed without telling me. "It's for your own good," draped over everything. Janet didn't offer a war, she offered structure. "Walt, this is control that edges into financial and emotional abuse. You want peace. Let's structure peace." A week later, I was in her office with a pen in my hand, signing a revocable trust. 23 pages, a number that felt right for no reason beyond its weight. Putting the house into it, with a no-contest clause that said any heir who schemed a challenge forfeited their share. We tuned up the will. Larger bequests to the public library and the Aurora Firefighters Foundation. Both made Linda's eyes light up. And smaller bequests to Melissa, with the door open. But the rules clear. We added a letter of intent explaining why I was doing it, written in my electrician's voice. No Latin, no lace. Janet helped me draft a notice to quit, polite and legal, giving 2 weeks for Melissa and Kyle to find another place. For breaking my rules and my peace, it wasn't a shouted eviction, it was a measured line. I attached copies of the DMV certificate, the bank emails confirming the rogue's insurance cancellation, and a screenshot of something I hadn't planned on having but did. A living room recording from Father's Day morning where Kyle's voice said, "No shame at all. We hid the keys because he doesn't need to know." I didn't need the recording to prove anything. The behavior already spoke. But hearing your own voice sometimes does what no argument can. It makes you blush. I could have slammed those papers on the table in a fit. I chose different. I invited them to a backyard lunch the next Sunday. Grilled burgers, sliced tomatoes, washed lettuce till it shined, let the coals turn to ember. I asked Mr. Franklin to eat with us, just to have an adult in the audience who wasn't family. I FaceTimed my sister in Tampa, propped the iPad up with a 1987 maintenance manual, invited Tricia from the DMV. She thanked me and passed, but sent a card that said, "Happy driving." I wanted it all in the open, no shadows. Noon light treats everything the same, shows the cracks and the pretty. When the burgers hit plates, I cleared my throat and spoke. "Before we eat, we're going to line up a few things." I set down the DMV certificate, the tuned-up will, the trust with a page flagged, and the 2-week notice. "Melissa, Kyle, I love you. I love Ethan like a piece of myself. But what you did has a name. Disrespect, and an attempt to take my autonomy. I passed the re-exam. I'm fit. My home is my place. Here are the new rules in writing. You've got 2 weeks to find another place. I'll help with the security deposit on the new rental. Final gift of this attempt. And if you challenge it, the trust clause shuts the door you think is guaranteed. Your call." The silence that followed was heavy. Kyle blew first, like always. "This is insane. That lawyer just wants your money." "Her name's Janet. She charges about $2.40 an hour. Worth every penny of my peace," I said, looking him straight in the eye without blinking. He slapped the table, knocked over my iced tea. Ethan startled and stared at me with those big kid eyes that don't understand why grown-ups make noise. "Kyle, sit down. The conversation's over," I said. "I'm not going anywhere," he shouted. "This house will be ours someday anyway." And that's when life, with its habit of teaching on cue, blew a whistle. He grabbed the rogue's keys. The same car with the insurance canceled days ago kicked the door and peeled rubber to the corner. 2 streets later, red and blue lit up. Aurora patrol cars run plate readers. Uninsured doesn't slip by. 15 minutes later, a city tow rolled up and took the rogue. I watched from the window, no smile. That wasn't revenge. That was consequence. Melissa texted from the hallway. They took Kyle's car. I answered with 3 words that didn't come from the Bible but could have. You have choices. Little did I know that line would turn into the bridge she'd use to come back. After that Sunday, the house settled into a weird rhythm. Calm on the surface, a storm on the radar. Melissa went sweeter for a few days, made lasagna, did the dishes, spoke soft. Kyle disappeared all day and came back late, doors slamming with his usual finesse. I kept routine like medicine. Coffee early, a half-hour loop around the block, some gardening, a woodworking class at the senior center on Colfax. I hung a new shelf in my office just because wood calms me. While I was sanding the edge, an email from Janet landed. Papers recorded, trust active, all in order. I let out a sigh that felt like a glass of water in a dry August. I slept better that night. On day 10 of the notice, Melissa knocked on my door with a letter in her hand. "Dad," she started, voice wobbling the way a body recognizes from crib days. I was wrong. Kyle pushed me. I thought I was protecting you and I got scared of losing you the way I lost Mom. I didn't mean to be cruel, but I was. I'm sorry? When an apology is real, your body knows. Mine knew. I opened my arms, she cried on my shoulder, and I said the 2 lines that walk together without tripping. I forgive you. I love you. And the third, the one that had to be there. The rules stay. You need to build your family and your home. And I need your boy to see a grandfather who respects himself. She nodded. Kyle didn't come talk. Spent 4 days dodging my eyes. On the last day, he stacked boxes into a buddy's pickup and, from the sidewalk, tossed a thread into the air like a lit cigarette into dry brush. Stubborn old man, this'll come back. The wind took the smoke and the door shut. The silence that followed made music. I didn't go to court. I didn't post a thing online. My counterattack was public the right way, in daylight on paper with a witness. Mr. Franklin ran into me at Maple Street Diner one morning and asked if I wanted to talk about the tow truck show. I laughed. Wasn't a show, it was maintenance. He stirred his coffee and said the simplest, truest thing I heard that month. We didn't turn into kids, Walt. We turned old. Kids need guidance. Old folks need respect. We clinked mugs, and the coffee tasted sweet. One afternoon, I got an envelope from the mailman. This one sealed tight. Inside was a drawing from Ethan, a blue truck, a man in a cap, crooked letters that said, Grandpa Walty. You could feel the chalk on the paper. Tucked with it, a note from Melissa. Thank you for teaching me the line I couldn't see. I stuck the drawing on the fridge with a Rockies magnet and stared at it longer than I'll admit. In the meantime, I kept going with the changes. Swapped the locks, just in case. Told a couple of neighbors I trust that if anything urgent came up, they should call me before calling Melissa. Cleaned up my bank contacts, pulled back powers I'd handed out in a naive moment. Updated my advance directive, named Janet as backup if my sister couldn't serve. Not paranoia, method. When a transformer lit off, I didn't guess. I followed protocol. With my life, I'd finally stopped guessing. One Saturday, I hit the road before the sun got high and drove out to Red Rocks. Parked, climbed a few rows of empty seats, sat where my knee allowed, and watched the stones take the morning. US 6 curled below like a lazy snake. I thought of Linda, how she'd clutch my arm on the downhills, laughing. You drive like the world is yours. No, love. I drive like my world, small, precious, is worth preserving. From the top of a pole, the view is always bigger than we are. From the top of a rock, the view just confirmed what I already knew. I'd done the right thing. The week of my next birthday, 69 sounded bigger than I felt. The doorbell rang. It was Rico, cap low, holding a keychain stamped, "Keep rolling, Walt." I laughed out loud. Was in the neighborhood, thought of you, he said. Life has a sense of humor when you do your part. Once the dust settled and Kyle's boxes left with all the racket of someone who thinks the world owes him, my house went back to smelling like coffee, wood, wet grass, and quiet. The F-150 slept in the garage with the new key hanging on a hook inside the safe. The hallway hook where I used to drop the key stayed empty for a few weeks. A reminder in plain sight. The Wi-Fi went back to a password I chose and wrote on a slip of paper tucked where only I can reach. The mail arrived and sat on the metal tray on top of the fridge until I opened it, seated with the letter opener Linda liked. Small wins, small routes repaired. I went to the VA without hurry, brought the new labs, heard the usual nudge about the blood pressure, cracked a joke with the nurse who calls me trouble ever since I fixed the hallway light without being asked. I swung by the public library and donated a check in Linda's name. The librarian, a young woman with her hair up and a gentle smile, said thank you in a way that felt like a hug. I stopped at Lamar's and took donuts to Mr. Franklin. Small thing, big thing. One afternoon I sat with Janet for another tweak to the will. I want a fund for Ethan, about $5,000 for a course when he turns 16. Could be music, mechanics, defensive driving. One condition, he has to come here one day and learn how to swap a wiper blade and air up a tire. She smiled, pen in hand. Your family's engineering is starting to look beautiful, Walt. I smiled back. Family is exposed wiring. If you don't organize it, it shorts. Melissa and I found a new way to move. She called. Let me know before coming over. Knocked and waited for me to say, come in. On a clear sky Wednesday, she showed up with Ethan and a pan of brownies. Dad, Ethan wants to show you the letter he learned. He climbed into my lap and held up a W shaped like a mountain, and I figured I'd never seen a letter so important. G for Grandpa? He asked. W for Walt. I laughed. But it can stand for Grandpa too, on my account, she asked quietly, if there was any chance that down the line she could come back for a few days when things calmed down. There's a chance, yes, with a written agreement. With your key on your key ring, not on mine. With the two of us deciding, not you deciding for me. She nodded the way a grown-up nods. I learned, she said. I believed her. But even if I hadn't, the new hinges were in place. Doors now opened and closed on my rhythm. Some folks, when you do what I did, call you stubborn, bullheaded, difficult. I got called all that the week I brought a flatbed into my driveway. I could have swallowed it and called it peace. I didn't. I learned the word I prefer. Sovereignty. It doesn't come from shouting, it comes from gestures. It isn't noise, it's the quiet construction of early mornings. A password changed, a safe bought and bolted down, a contract signed without an audience. If tomorrow someone tries to hide one of my keys again, car key, drawer key, the key to a decision, I know what to do. Identify, isolate, repair. And if need be, call the tow. The pickup rides pretty up the ramp. The control plan climbs down ugly off its pedestal. And the whole street can watch without me having to say more than one line. The truck is mine. The life is mine. Today I'm driving. At the end of that summer, I took the F-150 out toward Red Rocks again in the late afternoon, just to watch the stones turn to gold. I pulled over, rolled the windows down, and let the wind come in. I thought of Linda saying, "You drive like the world is yours," and I answered out loud just for me, "I drive like I belong to myself." I toasted with coffee from an old thermos that lives on the back seat. I toasted the ones who helped, Big Mike, Dr. Patel, Trisha, Janet, Rico, and I toasted myself for doing the hard thing, saying no with a trembling voice and keeping that no when the wave hit. Back in the garage, night settled. I saw a small envelope under the door in Melissa's handwriting. Inside, a photo of Ethan on the swings at the park, hair flying, grin wide. On the back, 4 words, "Thank you for teaching me." I stuck the photo on the fridge beside the drawing of the blue truck. Together, those 2 pictures told me what I needed to know. The tow didn't take a thing from me. It gave something back. And if anyone asks how you handle it when they try to hide your life along with your keys, I'll answer the way an electrician does, with method and with courage. Because yes, we grow old, but respect that doesn't rust. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about the story in the comments. See you in the next one.